Marjorie Williams' children's book that you probably read to your kids or nieces or nephews, called The Velveteen Rabbit, tells the story of a stuffed rabbit given to a young boy as a present. The Velveteen Rabbit lives in the nursery with the other toys, waiting for the day that the boy will choose him. The shy rabbit befriends the tattered skin horse, the wisest resident of the nursery, who reveals the goal of all nursery toys. That is to be made real through the love of a human. One night, we get to overhear their conversation. "What is real?" asked the toy rabbit. "Does it mean having that buzz inside you?" Skin Horse replied, "Real isn't how you're made. It's a thing that happens to you. When a child or a human really, really loves you, then you become real." Love is what makes the Velveteen Rabbit become real. Love is what makes us real. The love of a parent to a child, of a friend, of a spouse, of a sibling. Love. Last week, on the first day of the new year, I spoke about building from the abyss of this terrible moment to a better time. You see, it's no better this week. We are in grief beyond an intractable war, hostages, a desolate north, 4 or more fronts, an impossible situation in Israel, needing to protect and defend. And we're human. Seeing the destruction of God's children and communities on the other sides is hard for people to watch. It is almost too much for any one of us to bear. But we do. We build from destroyed places because we have to. On the second day of Rosh Hashanah, at a time of increasing anti-Semitism, I invited you to see that our task now is to live a thriving, vibrant, joyful Judaism, either as an American or as an Israeli. I invited you to think about what your signature mitzvah is. What is the Jewish action that you really love or you are really good at? And then on Saturday, members of our congregation talked about their signature mitzvot. But I don't want to leave you on the high holidays thinking that we should only do mitzvot that we like or that we're good at. Because there is one other mitzvah that is really incumbent on each of us. The one mitzvah that makes us real and makes us human. I want to invite you on this difficult year into a renewed observance of the most crucial and important mitzvah, v'ahavta, the mitzvah to love. You shall love. The Shema could end there. You shall love. Rabbi Shai Held teaches that Judaism is about love. That is the name of his new book. You should read it. Judaism is about many things, he writes, but above all else, it is about love. This is a truth that we need to internalize. Judaism is love, God's love for us, our love for each other, and for God. In addition to building a new Jewish institution, Rabbi Held spent many years writing this book, all while suffering from a debilitating illness. So publishing this work was a crowning accomplishment. The galleys of his book arrived on October 24th last fall, a time when the Jewish people had sunken into despair. Rabbi Held told his friends that he could not even open the box for 4 days. If you've published a book, or you're in academia and you've published a book, you open those galleys right away. He couldn't look at his book because he couldn't bear to think about love. All he wanted to do was cry. But then he knew that precisely at a time when we're hurting, we need to be reminded or taught that love is the guiding force of our tradition. At a time where much of the world doesn't love us, where we may feel unloved by others, we have to return to love. Last year, my favorite author, Anne Lamott, published a book about love as well. Somehow, Thoughts on Love. She is a religious Christian writer, a teacher, and she is one of my rabbis. She tells the story of her friend who finds a scared frog in a shower that was being remodeled. The friend cupped the frog in her hands to take it outside, but the frog leapt in terror against her cupped hands as she carried it away. And of course, that frog didn't understand the calm words that she spoke to it along the way. Lamott wrote, "This is one of the best examples of how love operates when we are most afraid or when we feel doomed. Love carries us to a safer place while we pound against cupped hands." In this hard time in the world, while people are anxious, our people are anxious and sad, we need to carry each other in cupped hands with love. We need to be extra nice and understanding. Rabbi Held writes that love is an existential posture and an orientation towards the world. You get up every day and you decide that you're going to act in a loving way. How can we live with that orientation? Can you think of ways that you'd want to change your attitude or behaviors to reflect the ideas that God loves us and that it is our sacred task to love God, each other, all of humanity? I admit, I think that you are probably wondering, why is she talking about this? You know, I often hear Jews making a false binary distinction. Christianity is about love. Judaism is about law. Have you heard that? Don't ever let anyone tell you that Judaism is not about love. Rabbi Held writes, "We have heard it 1,000 times. Christianity is about love, but Judaism is about something else, maybe law, justice, mitzvahs, whatever." In the past, he writes, these ideas were propagated by Christian theologians in a discourse about the supersession of a loveless Judaism by a loving Christianity. But strangely and tragically, many Jews and even some teachers and rabbis accepted it, even embraced it. So generations of Jewish children grew up thinking that Judaism is about something other than love. It's time to change that. How many times do you see the word v'ahavta in the service we did tonight? A lot. Rabbi Held teaches us that we are loved by God and that our response to this love is gratitude, generosity, and working towards justice. That our love from our families helps us to help those who are vulnerable. And he instructs us to see God's chesed, God's loving kindness, as the model for how we should interact with each other. In this year of pain, it's crucial to remember that Judaism is about using our actions to express our love for each other. And with that, we will have the ability to quell some of the anxiety when we live in the world with a loving posture. That might mean tomorrow looking at the list of al-hates that we just said and deciding to soften our hearts to not gossip, to not hate. And it's really hard. Twice each day we say the Shema, our anthem of belief in one God. Rabbi Art Green teaches that we are so moved by the idea of the oneness of God and all of creation that our response is love back. The next word is v'ahavta. We could end there. Be a loving person. Judaism teaches that God loves us not because of anything we have done or accomplished, simply because we are created in God's image. Grace, chen, that too is a Jewish concept. God's love for humanity is like the love of a parent for their child. The very first act of God's love after creation occurs when God is angry with us. You still love your children even when you're angry with them. We are expelled from the Garden of Eden because we did wrong. We sinned. And in the outside world of the garden, we discovered that we were naked and vulnerable. And then in an act of divine love, God clothes us. Can we cultivate love even when we're angry with another? That's hard. We may rightfully feel deep anger towards others. Certainly our enemies who assaulted our people or who stood by or who didn't feel our pain. We may feel anger towards God. But it would be a greater tragedy if we allowed the events of this year to turn our hearts away from love to bitterness and anger. Bitterness and anger only hurts our souls, not our enemies. They don't care. Rabbi Sharon Brous made a provocative statement to colleagues this summer. I'm not sure she thought we were going to share it. She said, I am convinced that we do not think we are all created in God's image, or that we certainly don't act that way. She asks us, can we take our theology seriously and really believe all are created in God's image, while still protecting and defending what we need to? Can we remember that our hearts have multiple chambers? Can we have places for our loved ones and our neighbors, and different rooms in our heart for the stranger, even when the stranger doesn't like us yet? The verse of the Shema continues, B'chol levavcha, with all of your heart. Judaism demands that we live passionately caring for the world and each other. B'chol levavcha, with all of our hearts, even when our hearts are broken and messy. So if during the next 24 hours you find yourself crying during shul, great. We are meant to live with all of our hearts, expressing emotion. How else do we know that Judaism is all about love? You know this line, this iconic verse, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Most of us often concentrate on the neighbor part. But in order to be loving towards another, we must first treat ourselves lovingly. Rabbi Eliyahu Hoffman, an Orthodox rabbi, writes, perhaps the Torah is affirming one of the very basic tenets of psychology and human nature. A self-hater is not capable of feeling true love for others. In other words, it is not so much that love is a benchmark for loving others, it's a prerequisite. We all know people who seem to radiate warmth and love. They walk into a room and smiles break out. You maybe are one of them. There are others, unfortunately, who seem to radiate negativity and bitterness. It is almost without fail that the most negative people in life, those who have the hardest time expressing their love for others, are the ones who have the hardest time accepting themselves. Can we learn to love aspects of ourselves, both for ourselves and so that we can bring more love into the world? Can we decide that we want to be the smiling, loving one and not one who's angry or bitter? Rabbi Held goes on to give us all a bigger challenge. This is the hardest. Most of us in this room are fine with having as much success and having our neighbor have as much success. But could you or we come to the audacious place of love where we are okay when our friend or neighbor has more than we do? Can we celebrate and love our neighbor and be truly joyful and not jealous when someone has more than we do? That is a higher level of love. So our homework, my homework for this Yom Kippur day, is to find some love in our hearts, each of us, for ourselves. To learn to see the positives in our own souls. And then to find some positives in others. Because once we can love and forgive ourselves, despite our failings, then we can love others, despite their failings. This is the work of our hearts of Yom Kippur, to forgive ourselves so that we can forgive others. There's one more challenge, and I didn't know if I could write this, but I feel safe here, so I'm going to talk about it. Ve'ahavta tager, love the stranger, says our Torah. We are invited to do the difficult task of finding some modicum of love for those who are other. Not our family, not our friends, not people we even like. This is advanced character work. What could this mean? It means that we don't have to choose between caring about Jews and Palestinians. We can care about both. We can care about all of God's children. And of course, we care about our family first and in a more passionate way. So we defend our family first. But it doesn't mean we can't care about others. Our Torah teaches us to love the stranger even when they don't love us. And you all know the famous saying, love is not like pie, which can run out. Love can be multiplied. The essence of acts of loving kindness is that the heart is put into deeds. All throughout this day, we will enumerate the sins that may have been done this past year. We embitter, we gossip, we hate, we insult, we are unkind. Imut halev, harhir hahur, harhur halev, clever cynicism. But what if we also had a different kind of al-chet? We have loved, we have blessed, we have grown, we have spoken positively, we have raised up, we have shown compassion, we have cultivated empathy, we have given good advice, we have been just, we have longed for Israel, we have been merciful, we have contributed, we have repaired. Maybe that too, written by Rabbi Avi Weiss, could be part of our Yom Kippur day. Yom Kippur this year is an invitation to turn our hearts and our orientation to being loving people, to not hardening our hearts. So I want to leave you with words from my favorite poet. Alden Soloway lives in Baka, in Jerusalem, and he writes religious Zionist poetry, but he also writes other poetry. This is called Let Love. Let love wash over your face, caress your eyes, brush your lips. Let love pulse through your heart, warm your lungs, and fill your chest. Let love strengthen your bones, ignite your nerves. For love is in the air and in the wind, the current and the waters, the flow of gifts from God's creation, divine bounty and grace. Calling out to you, dear sisters and brothers, awake, you slumberers. Awake, you who walk warily into the day and dejected into the night. Have you forgotten my gifts and treasures? Have you forsaken the beauty around you? Have you surrendered your joy and passion? This then is God's command. Let love wash over you, pulse through you, pour strength into you. Let love carry you into luminous days and radiance nights. Sing and dance, laugh and play, lifting your life with passion and hope. Let love be your messenger and your message. Shabbat Shalom and Gomar Chatima Tova. We end our service with just one or two more prayers.